Everyone who plays Escape from Tarkov has their own ideas of which guns are best, and which are their go-to kits for success. But there are so many guns you've likely never even tried. Today we're taking a look at a couple of guns that I hadn't tried before deciding to make this video. I spent a couple of days just running these guns and I've drawn up a little conclusion for you all. This is the MP5 versus the MPX. I'm Gaz, welcome to the channel. If you like the video or find it helpful, drop a like. Subscribe and never miss a video, and leave a comment with which items in Tarkov you'd like me to compare next. You might get lucky like Legion did today, who was the inspiration for this video. Thanks Legion. Let's dive in. So here we have a couple of weapons that are similar and different in their own ways. They are both submachine guns chambered in 9x19. Visually they aren't too far from each other either. You can mount a sight on the top rail and a suppressor on the barrel. And this is where these two guns take different paths. Before we get into the numbers, let's take these guns into the range and see how the iron sights compare. As you can see from the images on screen, the MPX benefits from a little bit more openness on the left and right hand side of its sight, where the MP5's bigger ring makes it harder to lose enemies you're aiming directly at. But you're definitely going to be wanting a red dot sight for these weapons, as even the cheap MRS sight is miles above either of these iron sights. Let's crunch some numbers. These stats are taken from base, unmodded versions of each weapon, as the more attachments you add, the muddier the numbers will get. Starting from the top, the MP5 has 68 ergo compared to 65 ergo on the MPX. This is not a huge difference and is mainly down to the slightly larger frame of the MPX and the fact that it can be so heavily modded. The MOA accuracy is 6.88 on the MP5 versus a flat 5 on the MPX. I talk more in depth about this in the SKS versus OPSKS video, but MOA is a measure of how tightly the spread of bullets is compared to where you're aiming. The lower the value, the more accurately you'll hit your targets, especially over range. It makes sense that the MPX takes this category, as it's rated more for long range than the MP5. To go hand in hand with this, the sighting range for the MP5 is 200 meters, compared to the 300 meters for the MPX. Again, as it's meant for slightly longer ranges. For vertical and horizontal recoil, the MP5 actually loses again, but only marginally. It's got 48 vertical and 224 horizontal compared to the 43 and 213 of the MPX. The MP5 should never be used at a range of more than 50 meters or so, and both of these guns are laser accurate, so I'm not going to knock either for their recoil stats here. Next we've got muzzle velocity. Finally, a category where the MP5 beats the MPX, right? Well, yes and no. The MP5 has a muzzle velocity of 384 meters per second, compared to the 299 for the MPX. But this doesn't tell the whole story. If two players were sniping a single target from 384 meters away, technically the bullet from the MP5 would reach the target, while the MPX bullet would still be over 85 meters away. However, at the range you'll be using these guns over, this stat doesn't really make a blind bit of difference. What does make the difference at close range, room to room clearing level, is the fire rate. And surprisingly, the MPX dominates the MP5 here too, at a fire rate of 850 rounds per minute versus 800. What makes submachine guns so effective at 5 to 20 meters from a target is the amount of lead that you can get downrange. The more bullets fired, the more chances of dropping an enemy instantly after hitting them in the head, or at least getting enough shots into the thorax to zero their armour and kill them as fast as possible. Where the MP5 should stand out is in the close range, yet the MPX still absolutely keeps it in check. Enjoying this video? Let me know by subscribing and leaving a like. Remember to leave a comparison suggestion to be in with a chance of getting featured in the next versus video. A few more stats to look at here. The MP5 has an effective distance of 200 meters versus 500 meters for the MPX. The MPX has two modes of fire, single or full auto. The MP5 has three, single, 3-round burst and full auto. And finally, the MP5 weighs 2.5 kilos, where the MPX weighs almost 2.9 kilos. The last and by far the biggest difference between these two weapons is that the MPX is fully customizable, with the ability to mount an optic and suppressor as mentioned previously, as well as rails all over the place to mount things like canted sights, grips, lasers, flashlights without a second thought. By contrast, the MP5 takes a little more know-how to mod effectively, and the most modded you'll generally find this gun is with a suppressor and PK06 red dot. So it's all down on paper. We've taken each weapon into the range and compared both guns in every category. Which is better? Going into this without too much experience on these guns, I thought the MPX was a shoo-in to win this versus. And after comparing them both quite heavily, I've got to say I think my initial assessment was bang on. The MPX outclasses the MP5 on almost every comparison. It's clearly the best at mid-range, yet somehow also completely destroys the MP5 where it should be dominant at close range, mainly due to the better fire rate while maintaining a practically identical recoil profile. When you add the fact that the MPX can be modded effectively for pretty cheap, it completely runs away with it. A clear win for the MPX and an incredibly fun and effective weapon. Having never even tried this gun before Legion's recommendation, I was surprised and delighted with how great it felt in the hands. I'd love to know what you think about this video, the comparisons I made and the conclusions I drew up. I've almost certainly missed a stat somewhere that levels the playing field here, so make sure you let me know so I can continue to improve this video series. If you enjoyed it or found it helpful, leave a like and show your support. Subscribe and never miss another video from me. Remember to leave a comment for the chance to be featured in the next versus video. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.